welcome to Cornwall. So we've come down to Widmouth Bay. This is the last day of our holiday. It's been a fantastic week. We've had all sorts of weather, but this is probably the calmest day of the 7 days that we've had. We've had 4 seasons, 1 day, 24 hours, you name it. So today we're going to do a couple of things. Just talking cameras really, and how to get the best out of them when you're shooting action stuff. Well, actually, not just action stuff. You know, how to control your shutter speed to get the effects that you want. And maybe we'll use a couple of examples. We've got the dog with us today, Maggie. There's nothing more animated than my dog on a beach, let me tell you. But we've also got some surfers out today. I've never seen waves at Widmouth Bay this big, nice and clean, hardly any wind. So that might offer us a chance to get some action shots of people in the surf. And what we're going to be really touching on is fast shutter speeds to freeze motion, how to do that. Also how to use slower shutter speeds for motion to get that panning effect, that blurred background, deliberate motion blur, but trying to keep the subject in focus and clear as possible. Later on, when the sun sets and we're back at Crooklets Bay, we'll do some longer exposure shots. Again, once again, to deliberately introduce motion blur into the subject matter and to get that silky smooth effect, especially where water's concerned. Well, let's see if we can cover that subject today. At the moment, I'm just walking down. Well, looks like Mrs. P and Maggie have emerged from the car, so let's get some action shots of the dog in action. All right, catch you later. Right, so the first thing to understand about shutter speed, certainly in terms of freezing the motion, so you've got a pin sharp image, you've captured that motion in time, there's no motion blur, you need a really fast shutter speed. Now my camera goes up to 0.008 of a second in terms of shutter speed, but what you also have to consider when you're selecting your shutter speed is how much light's available. Today's a good day, so I'll be able to use a relatively small aperture and my camera on probably the lowest ISO setting, and I'll still be able to get a properly exposed image. Now that's not always the case. So sometimes, certainly with either the time value on a Canon or the shutter priority on a Nikon, you may well have to adjust your aperture and your ISO setting to give you the shutter speed that you want. Or you can just go entirely manual and have control of all of those elements, which is definitely something we're going to be doing later. But today we're going to be playing with time value on my Canon. And let me just get out of the way of this wave. Or shutter priority on if you're a Nikon user. And yeah, let's see if we can get some freeze the action shots. If I can't get the surfers out there, then the subject today will be a Springer Spaniel called Maggie. She'll give us plenty of entertainment, I'm sure. Right, let's get to work. Okay, so I've just took a bunch of shots at 320th of a second that's captured Maggie running out of the surf. They seem to come out all right. You know, slowed the action down, caught her in some very funny poses. I'll share the pictures with you now. I've then just dialed down the shutter speed to a 50th of a second, put it onto high burst mode because because the action of panning the camera, you're going to lose some frames. So if you can fire 7 or 8 per second as you're tracking your subject, then you've got a better chance of getting the shot that you want. And what that's done is it's kept Maggie in focus. Just dodging a wave. It's kept Maggie in focus, and it's blurred the background, which is great, because what that does is it gives you a separation between your subjects and the background. And you know, it's a technique used a lot by motor racing journalists, and you can see them park themselves pretty close to a slow corner and then use a panning technique with a telephoto lens. You get that sharp image of the car and the blurred background. So, you know, there's many ways to take a photo. Two dogs absolutely having a nightmare here. One actually looks like it's got a beard. I don't know how that works in dog life, I'm sure. But yes, it's useful technique. Let me just show you this dog. As I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted. Yeah, so there's a couple of uses, or really different variations of fast and slow shutter speed to capture motion, and just depending on what type of shot you're after. You know, if it's absolutely critical that you get a sharp, clear image, you freeze the action, go for the highest shutter speed that your camera can manage, and go for it. Use burst mode to give yourself that chance of capturing the shot. But if you want a blurred background, then track your subject, slow your shutter speed down a bit, 50th, 60th of a second, something like that. Use burst mode again, and yeah, just hammer some shots off. And again, you won't get everyone, especially if you're panning something as random as my dog, very unpredictable. Then you've got to probably waste more shots than you get good ones. But that's the trade-off. And in digital photography, it ain't a problem, because it's effectively for free. It was a problem back in the day when you used to have film, because processing film is expensive. It's even worse today than it was back in the day when I started. So yeah, so there's 2 shutter speeds that you need in your kit bag, ready to use for tracking motion subjects. I've just been to fetch the refreshments, and it's getting very dark over there. I don't know whether the camera can pick that up or not. Think we're going to get wet. Think we might be retreating to the car. Here comes the missus. Don't look impressed. Emergency dog bowl. That's what happens when you drink seawater. You need lots of other water to wash it down again. Haven't quite got the hang of that, Maggie, have you? Can't drink seawater, really. Right, a bit of peace and quiet. So yeah, I've been down to the tidal pool at Bude to watch the incoming tide and take some photos of the waves hitting the mark, which is the entrance to the harbour. And I've mixed it up just to show you the examples or the points I'm trying to make about shutter speed. I've been using 300s per second to capture the moment the wave hits that mark, so we should get some pretty good detail in the water that's hitting the mark. And then I've switched over and put a neutral density filter on my camera, which is a bit like putting sunglasses on. It forces the camera into a longer exposure, and what that does is it introduces motion blur to the water. So the two pictures I'm going to put up are the same composition, just with different shutter speeds. Everything else is the same, and I'll leave you to work out which one you like best. Each have their merit. It just depends what you're after, and that's the creative side of photography. The sun's just about to set. It's got about another 10 minutes, but 40 minutes after that there should be in the sky a 2% illuminated crescent moon, which we might see. It just depends on how this high cloud moves, but you can't have everything, I guess, because it's a high cloud that's going to give us the decent sunset. So yeah, so that's me signing off from Bude. Thanks for tuning. Hang on, Poindexter, you can't end the video there. You haven't even mentioned the rule of 500 yet. So what's the rule of 500? Basically, it's a calculation for you to work out how long you can keep your shutter open on your camera and capture the night sky without the stars blurring. Now, the amount of time the shutter can stay open is relative to the focal length of the lens that you're using on your camera. And this tends to be a rough guide to how long you can keep your camera shutter open. I'll put the formula on the screen now, and I'll show you the picture I took from Crooklet's Beach after I'd finished filming at the tidal pool. And yeah, it's my favourite image of the holiday. It's always nice to capture the Milky Way, and you get a good view of it from Cornwall, so I couldn't resist it. I had to do that, but it does enable me to just finish the video by talking about shutter speed relative to nightscape photography, because you have to bear these things in mind. The Earth is rotating. If your camera shutter stays open, you will capture motion blur. But if you work out the longest shutter speed that you can use without that effect playing into your pictures, then you can get relatively sharp stars without having to use a tracking mount or anything like that. So I'll put on screen the image that I took. I've called it Stairway to Heaven. I'm sure Jimmy Page would approve. And I'll also show you a short time lapse that I managed to capture from a couple of evenings ago that show the motion of the Milky Way and the stars in the sky. And it's the best way to see it if you do a time lapse. And like I say, that's what you're trying to counteract if you want to get sharp stars in your pictures. If you don't want sharp stars, just leave your camera shutter open, take a picture for 2-3 minutes, and guarantee you will get the motion blur of the stars. And those pictures of motion blur, star trailing, are quite popular in astrophotography. I'll show you the picture I took from my back garden a couple of years ago, and you know, I think I had the shutter open cumulative for about 8 hours, and you can see the full rotation of the Earth through the picture that you get through the motion blur in the stars. Okay, I will end the video there. Thanks ever so much for watching and joining me on my short stay down in Cornwall, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye for now.